Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestle News 365. Hope everyone is doing well. Now before we get started with the video, don't forget to subscribe by clicking the bottom right hand corner. Nia Jax. Is Nia Jax unsafe in the ring? Is she reckless? That's what we're going to be talking about today. Now, this is a conversation that's been kind of going on for quite a while on social media and in the WWE universe, whatever you want to call it, fans online, fans of wrestling. But it's a conversation that's come up once again recently. Now, some sections of social media and online feel that Nia Jax is unsafe in the ring. They think she's reckless. They think she doesn't take care of her opponents. And why is that? Well, that's due to a history of, quote, injuring her opponents in the ring. Now, it's a well-known thing in professional wrestling that your opponent should come in and out of your opponent should come out of the ring the same way they come in. Easy for me to say. Basically, the most important thing out there is to protect your opponent. It's a dance. They are putting their life in your hands. They are putting their body in your hands. So you should protect them. Now, the argument of Nia Jax being reckless, being unsafe, once again has surfaced after her match on Monday Night Raw, was cut short this week due to an injury to her opponent, Kairi Sane. Now, a story about this came out last week. Now, WWE once again held some marathon TV tapings. I think they taped like 10 hours, if more, of content over a couple of days. They taped Raw, NXT, SmackDown, all the shows heading into Backlash next Sunday. Now, it was reported coming out of those tapings by Fightful, specifically, I believe, Sean Ross Sapp, that during the Kairi Sane versus Nia Jax match, that Kairi Sane had sustained a cut to the head. It was very bloody, and the match itself had to be cut short. There was rumours that she'd suffered a concussion as well. But obviously, because we hadn't seen the match, we only had the story to go on. Lots of people were in uproar. It's another injury in a Nia Jax match, but some people were holding reservations until they actually saw the match itself. Now, we have since seen the incident in question on TV this past Monday night on Raw, and yeah, it was ugly. Kairi Sane has since also shared a picture on her Twitter feed and Instagram feed of the cut in question. It's a pretty deep cut. I would be surprised if she didn't sustain a concussion. She didn't look with it at all during the match after she sustained the injury on Monday Night Raw. Like I said, the match was heavily edited. I don't know if that's due to the amount of blood that was there at the time. I don't know if that's just because she wasn't out of it. She was out of it. She, like I said, seriously concussed. I don't know, but the match was heavily edited. Basically, the spot happened, and then they went straight into the finish. So, in terms of this Nia Jax, is she unsafe? Is she reckless? Argument. Well, look. I think before you go into all of this, you have to say that, look, accidents do happen in the ring. You know, nobody is perfect when it comes to professional wrestling. Bret Hart likes to say that he never has ever injured anyone in the ring. Well, not everyone is Bret Hart, unfortunately. Accidents happen. Nobody's perfect. A lot of the time, these shows are live or live to tape, so it's performance. Accidents happens. Nobody is perfect. I think, and we'll go into this later on, but I think sometimes the issue with Nia Jax, and it's kind of a common thread with all of these incidents, that look, she is a larger woman, and she is the biggest female on the roster. She had set records of strength and deadlifts, etc., records at the Performance Center when she was there. That was a well-known thing, you know. Nia Jax set all these records at the Performance Center when they do the combine and all that sort of stuff. It would appear to me that sometimes she has a bit of difficulty controlling that strength. You've got to remember that every time she's working with someone, she's working with a smaller female or a smaller superstar, and a superstar that she is much stronger than and has a lot more power than. So she has to be careful. Now, does that make her reckless? It's certainly an argument to be had there. Now, in terms of where this whole thread, this narrative comes that Nia Jax is reckless in the ring or she's unsafe in the ring, I did a bit of research and I came across this video by WrestleLamia. If you haven't subscribed to WrestleLamia, definitely do so. I'll put a link to the video in question here, but they have a ton of subscribers on YouTube. They do a lot of good and fun videos on there. There's certainly the behind, it's not called Behind the Titantron anymore, but that series is fantastic. Now, they did a video. This was sometime last year that they posted, and they listed all of the injuries that Nia Jax had arguably put her opponents through, and I want to go through them now. So the first one was Ember Moon. Now, Ember Moon and Ronda Rousey at the time teamed against Tamina and Nia Jax on the December 3rd, 2018 edition of Monday Night Raw. The match itself went pretty much without hiccup, really. There wasn't an injury apparent at the time, but post-show, Ember Moon's husband, Matthew Palmer, tweeted, quote, "Hope this unsafe moron doesn't hurt my wife again," end quote. Now, of course, no injury was disclosed or announced. We know that superstars and wrestlers work hurt all the time. That's not a WWE thing, that's a professional wrestling thing. But it would appear that there was some form of heat there, of some form of recklessness in the ring. Also, they listed Bayley was unfortunately injured by Nia Jax. On the July 31st, 2017 edition of Monday Night Raw, Nia Jax threw Bayley to the outside of the ring. At the time, she landed on her shoulder in the ring before rolling to the outside. It would appear at the time that she did hurt her shoulder, but she continued on with the match, Bayley. Once back in the ring, Nia Jax then hit a shoulder tackle in the ring as Bayley continued to work the match. Bayley would once again sour the shoulder injury as it was legitimate. It was never fully announced what the shoulder injury was, but of course Bayley did suffer a shoulder injury and she was out of the ring for a month. This led to Bayley being removed from the Raw Women's Championship match at SummerSlam against Alexa Bliss, as at the time she was the #1 contender for the Raw Women's Championship. So an injury there and taking a superstar in Bayley out of a big moneymaker match, arguably the second biggest show of the year. Next, Selena Vega. Now, there was a Battle Royal at the Evolution pay-per-view in 2018. Of course, the women's only pay-per-view, Evolution in 2018. During the show, we had a Battle Royal with the winner getting a SmackDown or Raw Women's Championship match at TLC. During the match, Selena Vega and Nia Jax hit up a bit of a partnership, but that, of course, like in any Battle Royal, was short-lived. Nia Jax would pick up Selena Vega, gorilla pressed her, and threw her to the outside to be caught by Tamina, but in the process, Selena Vega hit the floor hard. She hit her head hard. It was announced post-match that she suffered a concussion and missed a month of TV. Charlotte Flair, April 10, 2017 edition of Monday Night Raw. We had Charlotte Flair versus Nia Jax. Charlotte Flair goes to do her moonsault out of the ring. Nia Jax looks to be unaware that the spot was going to occur. She didn't catch her properly. Charlotte Flair's boot hits the head of Nia Jax, and Charlotte Flair is not caught and lands face first on the outside. Now, I don't think she did suffer a concussion, but it was a dangerous spot nevertheless. Later on in the match, Nia Jax would go for a shoulder breaker on Charlotte Flair, but instead of driving Charlotte's shoulder into her knee, she drove her head into her knee. Once again, a dangerous spot. Now, arguably the most famous Nia Jax injury spot was Becky Lynch on Raw in 2018, the go-home show to Survivor Series. Prior to this, Becky Lynch, the SmackDown Women's Champion at the time, was scheduled to face the Raw Women's Champion, Ronda Rousey, at Survivor Series. A big match, arguably the biggest match of Becky Lynch's career. Becky Lynch was hotter than any superstar on the roster at the time. They do a show closing segment where the SmackDown female roster invades the Raw brand, invades the Raw roster. They brawl in the ring, and Nia Jax punches Becky Lynch square in the face, suffering Becky Lynch with a broken nose and a concussion, and was out the ring for a while. Now, I know some people are going to say, well, this arguably made Becky Lynch hotter and more over with the crowd than ever, but it's reckless nevertheless. You've got to say that. At the time, we didn't know what Becky Lynch would go on to be. She was over as hell with the crowd at the time. She had the biggest match of her career, the biggest money match of her career against the biggest female superstar on the roster at the time, Ronda Rousey, the biggest mainstream female superstar on the roster at the time, and being Ronda Rousey. Look, it could have gone the other way, whereby, look, Becky Lynch could have faded off into obscurity because of this. So it's reckless nevertheless. Of course, they turned it into an angle afterwards, but it got a lot of people talking about how it was reckless. It was an errant punch from Nia Jax and wasn't necessary to have that form of stiffness in what is just a brawling segment. Now, also, we have not just females on this list, but men's. R-Truth, the 2019 Royal Rumble, R-Truth was scheduled to enter at number 30 after winning the Mixed Match Challenge with Carmella the prior year. However, he makes his entrance and out comes Nia Jax. Nia Jax attacks R-Truth. She throws him into the electronic sign, the Royal Rumble sign, even breaking it slightly. Now, Jerry Lawler revealed on his podcast that R-Truth indeed hurt his ankle, and Truth was very unhappy backstage at the spot. However, Nia Jax responded to this with a picture of them hugging backstage. Truth did wrestle on the following SmackDown not once but twice, winning and defending the United States Championship. So it would appear that there was no injury there to R-Truth. Was Truth, in fact, angry at the spot? We don't know. That could have been just Jerry Lawler making up Jerry Lawler stories. But you know what they say, there's no smoke without fire there. Now, this pattern or this sort of heat died off for most of 2019 because, of course, Nia Jax was out due to injury herself. She had double knee surgery and only returned to active competition on the Raw after WrestleMania of this year. Now, the conversation about Nia Jax being unsafe in the ring came up again a couple of weeks ago as she faced, once again, Kairi Sane on Monday Night Raw. She went for a buckle bomb onto Kairi Sane, threw her, but didn't actually fully get her into the turnbuckle. She sort of threw her, missed the turnbuckle slightly, or came a bit short of the turnbuckle, shall I say, and Kairi Sane hit her head on the bottom turnbuckle. This resulted in the buckle bomb move now being banned. Now, this wasn't just a Nia Jax thing. This was partially due to the incident, but the incident was seen as the final straw. Of course, the buckle bomb has been a move that has been widely criticised for quite a while now. We had Finn Balor get injured at SummerSlam 2016 because of a buckle bomb maneuver into the ringside barrier. Of course, it was the move that ended Sting's career, with Seth Rollins hitting not one but two buckle bombs at Night of Champions. So it wasn't necessarily just a Nia Jax issue, but a move issue perhaps. But again, it got the conversation going of, is Nia Jax unsafe? Is she reckless in the ring? Now, obviously, this week's incident is the incident that everyone is talking about at the moment. The incident, if you haven't seen it, was an incident where Kairi Sane was thrown into the steel steps after being thrown to the outside of the ring. Now, I must say that I don't think Kairi Sane had her feet set at the time. She didn't look set to take the move. She kind of trips in the process as well and is subsequently thrown headfirst into the steps. Now, I don't think that this incident is completely Nia's fault, but I certainly think there is blame on both competitors here. Like I said, Kairi didn't have her feet set. She didn't take the move properly. She tripped. But Nia Jax ultimately should be taking care of her opponent. She didn't need to throw her with that amount of force into the ring steps. And Nia Jax, of course, could have just taken time. She could have taken more time and said, let's get your feet set. Let's make sure you can protect yourself for this move and not thrown her so hard. So there's certainly blame on both sides there. But you have to also consider that, look, these are two matches with Kairi Sane in recent succession and two possible injuries. That doesn't look great on Nia Jax either. Now, Brian Alvarez has also reported that he got a message from someone backstage, unnamed of course, who said, quote, 1000% Nia's fault. She needs to be effing fired. She is dangerous. Fire her before she cripples or kills somebody, end quote. So, like I said, this brings up the conversation once again. Is Nia Jax reckless in the ring? Is she unsafe? Well, I've listed all of those incidents there. There's probably a couple more as well that I haven't mentioned. If I haven't mentioned them, let me know in the comments section below. The evidence there is pretty damning, isn't it? Now, as I mentioned earlier, Nia Jax set records at the Performance Center prior to being even on NXT for powerlifting and strength. She's a larger woman, bigger than any other female on the roster, without a shadow of a doubt. And I think a common thread here is that she doesn't know her own strength, and sometimes she needs to lighten up. She needs to slow down, and she needs to ultimately, the most important thing here, she needs to protect her opponent. Sometimes, you said, well, the Bayley injury, you saw the Kairi Sane injury, with the Ember Moon injury. She insists on using this power, using this strength, and throwing them as hard as possible because in her head she is the irresistible force. That is her character. She needs to be this strong, overpowering character, but ultimately that is what causes the injuries. I think back to when you had people like Mark Henry on the roster. The world's strongest man was a shoot. He was the strongest man. He'd won all these powerlifting competitions. He could have absolutely destroyed people on the roster, but he didn't. He had to protect them. That's the most important thing here. He needs to protect them. And I think that's the same issue here with Nia Jax. She's much bigger and she's much stronger than the females on the roster, who are, some of them, like a Kairi Sane, are very small indeed, and could be seen to be slightly fragile or slightly more petite. She needs to be more careful of those opponents. But these injuries, of course, like I mentioned here, Becky Lynch, Charlotte Flair, Kairi Sane, Bayley, these injuries or incidents have been to major stars and arguably some of the biggest, or if not the biggest, stars on the roster. And how long has she been on the main roster now, Nia Jax? What, she made a debut on Raw in 2016, so that's 4 years. And she was on the NXT roster for 2-3 years, something like that. So that's nearly 7 years of experience on a major level, on a major platform. This stuff just shouldn't be happening. These incidents should not be happening. Now, like I said, I don't blame Nia Jax for every single instance here. Accidents happen. Nobody is perfect. But there is a pattern forming. And this stuff shouldn't be happening. So what do? I've seen some people say, well, send her back to NXT. Well, I'm not sure really what that's going to achieve. I'm not advocating to fire Nia Jax. I think Nia Jax as an attraction is money. There is without a shadow of a doubt she is money. Some people are criticising her, saying, oh, she's just got a job because of her cousin, The Rock. Look, I think that does play into it. Without a shadow of a doubt, that's what got Nia's foot in the door, and they like to talk about that on TV, and I'm sure they'd be worried about Dwayne's reaction should Nia Jax get fired. But ultimately, you do have to think about the safety of your talent and the safety of the competitors at hand here. But despite all of this criticism, and despite all of this story and all of this controversy going around about her in-ring work at the moment, Nia Jax is still the #1 contender for the Raw Women's Championship against Asuka at Backlash. Now, heaven forbid anything happens to Asuka at Backlash. I don't think it will. I don't think it's that kind of an issue. But we've seen issues in the past. I think back to Mabel, when he was King Mabel and he was facing the likes of Diesel. Was it 1995? And look, his recklessness ultimately cost his job for a while. And do I think it will cost Nia Jax her job eventually? It depends how long it goes on for. It depends how long it goes on for, to be honest. Like I said, I don't think all of these issues are Nia's fault. I really don't. And I don't want it to come across that I'm picking on her or saying she needs to be fired or anything like that. I don't think that's the case at all. But I do think that she needs to be more careful in the ring. There certainly is a pattern here that needs to be discussed backstage, and certainly I think agents and producers and higher-ups need to say to her, look, you need to loosen up in that ring, especially when you're going against a smaller opponent and a much smaller opponent like a Kairi Sane or whatever. Look, we get your whole gimmick as this irresistible force. We get that you have this power and this presence and you're not like any other female on the roster. That is your positives, but you shouldn't be doing it at the expense of your opponent in that you're hurting them. Because ultimately, when you're hurting talent, you're not only taking money out of their pocket, but you're also taking money out of the WWE's pocket. And that's when it becomes an issue. That's when it becomes an issue for me. So, look, I don't think she's going to win the Raw Women's Championship at Backlash. We're just in Asuka's reign at the moment. We've just started. So I don't think that's going to happen. And Asuka seemingly has got the better of her nearly in every interaction on Monday Night Raw so far. So I really don't think that's going to happen. But like I said, we'll have to wait and see, and it's certainly a discussion worth having, I think. So what do you think? Do you think Nia Jax is unsafe? Do you think she's reckless? What do you think she should do to improve? What do you think WWE should do to resolve this issue? Let me know in the comment section below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to WrestleNews 365. You can do that by clicking the bottom right-hand corner of the screen right now, or if you wait a few seconds, there'll be a subscribe button at the end of this video, along with another video for you to watch. Or you can go to our YouTube channel there, watch every video we've uploaded to YouTube, as well as clicking the subscribe button there too. Don't forget to follow us on all of our social media platforms on the screen right now. Twitter, that's at 365Wrestle, at WrestleNews365, on Facebook or Instagram. If it's on social media, we are on there. Be sure to give us a follow. Thank you very much for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. And I'm sure I'll speak to you again very, very soon. Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.